everybody's kids are going to have certain abilities that they picked up from their parents. And then things that they go learn on their own from other people they work with, right? Trump's kids, you see how Junior speaks. I'm around Barron, and I kind of watch Barron, very similar to his dad. Ivanka, maybe he's got a little bit more mom and a little bit of dad. And then you kind of watch the kids on how they are. A lot of parents and then themselves, right? The same goes for a lot of different families, okay? You see the Kennedys, similarities. Joseph being a guy at the top. There's a lot of power that's coming in from Joseph with his sons. Oldest son dies in war. He was going to be the president. He goes through depression. Youngest ends up becoming the president. That's the last guy they thought that was going to be president because he had back problems and all these other issues, but he ends up becoming it. But all of them, certain habits, women, all this stuff that they have, right? Robert Maxwell, I'm sure, Robert Maxwell, the things he was involved with. Matter of fact, if you've never seen the movie Tetris, I don't know if you've seen the movie Tetris or not.
No, not that one.
I think you would enjoy Tetris. He's in Tetris, negotiating with Russia on how he wanted to get the rights to Tetris to buy, and they're offering this $3 million, $5 million, and you kind of see, and then Robert Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine, boom, and he was a media tycoon. And then you and Jeffrey, I watched some of his interviews. I watched how you speak. What were some of the values mom and dad taught when it comes down to having each other's back? Was it, hey, we always have each other's back, it's Epstein's first, family this? Was it those types of values mom or dad passed down to you guys, or no?
Now, first of all, in making the comparisons, Jeff and I were not very much like our father. He was a simple, not a businessman, just a nice, good, quiet, content guy.
Really?
Yeah. And my mother was more the dominant parent, or more parenting.
Was she in business?
No, she was just a good mother.
She was just a good mother.
A good, loving mother, yeah.
And was it like loyalty, have each other's back, defend each other? Was it those kinds of values?
Well, just we came from a close family. We had, a lot of family around, and it was just a normal, happy kind of family situation. None of us had much to start with, and it was
both
just
of
a
you
good
guys,
time.
both of you ended up making money, right? You've done good for yourself, and he had, the estimations of how much he had with his estate. Where did that drive towards the money come from? How did that happen? Was it a competitiveness? Was it somebody in the life that influenced it, or?
No, it wasn't competitiveness, because if we could help each other, we always would. It wasn't competitive. We were taught that that we'd be able to get whatever we wanted, not because somebody would give it to us, but we were sort of raised to have the confidence that we could figure out what we wanted and figure out how to go about doing it and going after something. So we were raised to be very independent and very confident.
Got it. Okay. So, and then you said the last 7 years you guys had spent a lot of time with each other. I'm assuming from a year and a half, my sons are a year and a half apart, to be exact, similar to yours, similar to you and your brother, okay? They're best of buddies. They'll fight, they'll do all this stuff, all these things that happen, and then God forbid one doesn't see the other one for a day. They're bitching about it, right? I'm like, what happened? I thought you wanted your own room. I thought you wanted to do this. And that relationship. Mm-hmm. How close were you guys when you guys were?
Well, we were very close. Years ago when we were younger men, we used to speak just about every day. But then life goes on, and I had a family. I was more, concentrating on raising children. Jeff was doing his stuff, and, we stayed in touch, but just there wasn't any reason to get together anymore. If something would happen, we would get together. But
no similar interests, no Yankees, no Mets, no Knicks, no baseball cards, no collectibles, paintings, art.
No, I mean, we were both into music, but in different ways. But like I said, we had some mutual friends from the old days, which occasionally we'd see, but most of the people we were close to left New York. So there was no reason where everyone would get together in New York anymore. And like I said, he was traveling the world in his directions, I was in mine, but we stayed in touch.
Was there any time where you're kind of like, hey, as a brother, to say, hey, man, some of the stories I'm hearing in the market, be careful, what you're getting yourself into, and how you're doing this. Was there any kind of conversations with the two of you guys, or no?
No, because that was his world, and I knew he could take care of himself in his world, and he knew I could take care of myself in my world.
So it wasn't that kind of a relationship where feedback's being given to each other. It's just brotherly love.
Yeah, and just laughing a lot.
Got it. So when you see these stories, because it's not like the stories it just recently happened. The stories have been happening linked to your brother for a very long time. It's not like a brand spanking new story. It's like, hey, he's being linked to this, linked to that. How did you process that? Was it like, hey, Jeff, was this stuff true? Or
Well, what happened in 2006, okay, when he first got into trouble, I was in the city, New York City, he was in the city. He asked me to come and see him. So I was uptown, and I went to his place. And he told me that he was getting into trouble. He wanted me to hear it from him. I didn't know anything was happening up until that point. And he told me that he was getting in trouble because he was with women that were too young.
he told you that?
He told me that
Got it.
because he wanted me to hear it from him. So instead of hearing it on the news, so that's how I found out about it.
And what was the reaction? It's like, okay, we'll talk later, or
Well, honestly, I said to him, I'm glad Mom's dead because I know this news would have killed her.
I'm glad Mom's dead.
Yeah, because if my mother she had died 2 years prior, and if she was still alive, I know this news would have killed her.
Was Pop still around or no?
No, he passed away back in 91.
Okay,
He was gone.
got it.
Yeah.
So this is 06, 04. So Mom passed away in 04?
Yeah, it was 2 years ago.
Wow,
2 years
got it.
prior. So that's how I found out about
And
it.
what was his reaction when he said that?
He understood.
And then from there, you're somebody that, gives me the vibes that you're going to get the answer to any question that you want, where you're not going to just sit there and be like, yeah, suicide? Shit, lost my brother. Okay, I'm going to trust the government. It's suicide and move on, right?
Well, no, if it was truly a suicide, look, if they came out of the autopsy and said, yeah, this was clearly suicide, well, I would have mourned the loss of my brother and then gone on with my life. Because, like I said, I had assumed that it was a suicide because that's what I heard on the news. And like I said, at that moment, I had no reason to doubt it and looking at the bigger picture. But on the other hand, after the fact, what's not really made public is that when Jeff was first arrested in July, his attorneys called me up and they told me he was arrested. Jeff called me from Paris. It was a Thursday night. It's just a normal how you doing phone call. And then the next day he flew home and he got arrested. So that was the last conversation I ever had with him, was that phone call from Paris. And then he's arrested. His attorneys called me a couple of days later, told me that he was arrested. And they asked me if I would participate in his bail because it helps if other people participate. And I said, sure. Put up my house in Florida for bail for him. Because I knew he wasn't a flight risk, and he's my brother. I was helping him out. And most people would then, well, who's this brother? Because now became public that he had this brother putting up a house. So then I had everybody trying to find dirt on me because trying to link me to his activities, and they were writing things that were not true about me. I was getting death threats. I had to hire armed guards for a while. And then a few weeks later, obviously he didn't get bail. He was in jail. A few weeks later, they were going to appeal the decision for bail. And his attorneys called me up again. And Jeff was putting up a lot of money for bail. And they asked me if I would guarantee his entire bail, in essence, doubling it. And I said, yes, I will. So between his bail assets and my guaranteeing it, and another friend was putting up assets, it would have been the highest bail ever in the United States. Up to that point. I Googled it to see what the highest bail was.
What was the number?
But the highest bail at that point in time was $100 million.
So you guys were willing to put on more than $100 million bail?
Yeah. Well, it's you're not spending it.
I totally get it, but there's still risk to it,
Yeah, but I didn't really see it as a risk. And,
it's your brother.
it's my brother.
Yeah.
So I agreed. So the hearing for the bail appeal was coming up in a few days. I wasn't aware of the dates. I wasn't that close to the details. He was dealing with his attorneys. This wasn't my thing. But I found out that the hearing was coming up in a few days. Now, the question becomes, why would he kill himself before that bail hearing? Because if he got bail with what would have been the then highest bail ever, right? He'd be living in his house in the city on 71st Street, which was a pretty nice house. He'd have an ankle monitor on. He'd have armed guards to make sure he didn't disappear. He'd have cameras all over the place. But he'd be living in his house, waiting for a trial a year later.
Is that what prompted the fact that, no, they took this guy out for a reason?
Well, this was just part of the,
Right.
Why would he kill himself
Right.
then? I could understand more if he had the hearing and bail was denied again. And then he's spending a year in jail,
Right.
waiting for a trial. Then I could see if he wanted to take himself out. Look, he didn't have any children to worry about. Our parents were gone. He knew he didn't have to worry about me. So if he decided to take himself out, I would have just accepted that as his decision.
Yeah, so you see, that validates. By the way, what that tells me is that there is true love, brotherly love for each other, for you to be willing to put up the money. Where it's, are you following the story of this guy, Rob? What's the guy's name that is being accused of killing these two girls? And he said, I drove over one of the girls until she was a spaghetti. You know what I'm talking about?
No, I haven't.
Have you been following with the tattoos on the side of his lips? He looks like the Joker. You know who he is. This is like he's all over the place. And
I haven't heard. Wow.
no, not that guy. Have you guys seen this or no? Humberto, have you seen this or no?
No.
Okay, so I got to show you this. Wade Wilson, that's his name. Go to Wade Wilson. So Wade Wilson, he's on trial. This guy picks up two girls, kills both of them. One of them, he says he drove over so many times until her body was like a spaghetti, like noodles. And then his father is testifying. So his father had him, his father's ex had him when he was 15 years old. The father was 15 years old. So it's just one of those things, wasn't planned young. You kind of have the kid. And he's not in the picture, so the relationship's not the best. And the father is being asked, so when he called, what did he tell you? He says, yeah, my son called me and he said he killed somebody. I said, really? And then what did he say? He says, that's when I was on the phone, I had him on speaker, and my wife was listening to the conversation. And then what did you do? And the father is not defending the son. You can tell there is no, support and affinity between the father and the son, right? If a father doesn't defend the son, what else do you need to do? I mean, at this point of the game, it's over with, right? No one's going to sit there and think you're innocent. You're defending your brother. And a lot of bad things have been said about your brother and the things that he's done, right?
But I'm not defending him criminally.
No, not defending him criminally. You're defending his bail to sell. I'll put it up money-wise instead of saying, don't bother me. Kind of go mind your own business, go find somebody else. I don't have any relationship with the guy. A brother that doesn't have a good relationship with the brother wouldn't put up the bill. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
That makes sense.
So this takes me back to the question I was asking you. So when he calls you and he says, hey, Mark, I'm going to get in trouble because there's some things in 06 with young girls, and you say, I'm glad mom is no longer with us because she had died 2 years prior to that. And then stuff pops up in the public. Did you ever want to go do your own due diligence and research to find out what really Jeffrey was up to that maybe he wasn't fully disclosing everything? Or you were not that curious to want to investigate your own brother?
Well, I knew he had really good attorneys to do that, and as much as I love my brother, I also believe in, you make your bed, you sleep in it. So it was his problem. He seemed to be dealing with it. When I spoke with him, he wasn't, way bent out of shape. He seemed to be, sane and dealing with it. And there's really nothing I could do as his brother or anybody else. I'm not a criminal investigator.
Yeah.
What would you suggest I could have done? I don't know what would be on that list.
Has your mind blown up yet? Have you sat there and said, I cannot believe what Mark just said to me? Allegedly. This interview is a perfect interview to go sport the gear. Allegedly, if you haven't ordered your shirt yet, click here, the QR code, go to vtmerch.com. Place your order allegedly. It's one of the hottest items we have in our merch store. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.